Lisa.
I'm Marisha Pink.
And I'm Sophie Hannah, and I want to welcome you to episode 31 of Ethnically Speaking, the show where we discuss everything affecting the UK's highly melanated communities, from current affairs to pop culture and everything in between. Now, if you've been rocking for us for a while, then you've probably noticed something a little bit different about our lineup today. And that's because the inimitable Lwanda Yasmin has decided to move on from the show. And while she will be sorely missed from everybody on the Ethnically Speaking team, we really want to wish her all the best for the future and to anything that her talent takes her to next. And now, while we're on the subject of the Ethnically Speaking team, we are joined today instead by Marisha Pink, the co-founder of the United Melanin Group company and the executive producer of Ethnically Speaking. Welcome to the show, Marisha.
Thank you so much, Sophie. It's actually really fun to be back on this side of the camera with you ladies. And you're going to be seeing a lot more of me and the rest of the production team over the next couple of weeks as we officially kick off our search for some new hosts of Ethnically Speaking. We are, of course, going to be keeping all of our viewers and listeners up to date as we go. So make sure you're following us on social. If you're not already, what are you waiting for? All the links are down in the description. And you will also get a chance to see just who is in the running as we get our favourites up on the show live on air to be doing some guest hosting spots as the process rolls on. So make sure you keep following us, and if you're interested in coming to be on the panel with these lovely ladies, then make sure you stick around to the end of the show where we'll be giving you full details of how to apply.
Well, it sounds like we've got some exciting times coming, but until then, we're still going to keep it 100 this week as we talk about Trump and the invasion of the Capitol building, push presence, a register for racial offenders, and taking people from the friend zone to fiance. But first up, we've got Marisha. We're going in heavy from the top. What you got for us?
Yeah, you're going to have to bear with me a second, ladies. It is the latest installment in the great saga that is America, the series. By now, I think we've probably all seen the images and the videos of thousands of Trump supporters storming the US Capitol building last week in a bid to prevent Congress from certifying Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. There were fights with law enforcement, there was destruction and theft of federal property, not to mention some deaths, very, very sadly. And despite all of this lawlessness continued for hours before what was a predominantly white mob was forcefully ejected from the building and basically told to go home. There weren't really very many arrests. And I guess the question on everybody's lips is what's going on, because this behavior and the response from law enforcement really lies in stark contrast to what we saw in the Black Lives Matter protests last summer. There was often unprovoked and violent and hostile treatment of Black people. And so that's got many of us in the community questioning whether this so-called unconscious bias in the police force is actually unconscious at all. And basically, it's reignited debates about white privilege in America. Now, Trump. Where do we begin with Trump? Lots of people are saying that Trump is responsible for this. Trump incited that insurrection in a speech that he gave to protesters earlier that day. And let's not forget that we've had 4 years of misinformation, divisive and inflammatory comments, not to mention some very, very shady behavior on his part. And Twitter have finally seen the light, along with a couple of other social media channels, and they have permanently suspended his account. But now, and this story is, I guess, unfolding. I see you there, Sophie. The story's unfolding, and Trump may actually become the first US president in history to face impeachment twice. So with all of this in the latest saga, and like I said, the story that we call America, what I want to know is this: why did it take a siege on a federal building for people to realize just how dangerous Trump and his narrative are? And to, I guess, even acknowledge that white privilege exists? And more importantly, how does America recover from this? How do they move forward? And how do we avoid ever seeing a fiasco like this again?
To be honest, Marisha, this is a lot. It's a lot. And I think the one thing that I would like to reiterate from what you said, the predominantly white mob. Now, I'm not saying that gives me joy, but what I'm saying is I don't understand why it took people this long. And the only thing that I can think of, I don't know why it took people this long to see racism in America. For some people wanting to be blind to it. The only thing that I can think why it took this long is because people didn't take him seriously. Like maybe they actually thought no one takes him seriously. He's obviously a joke. And then it took the storming of the building to realize that actually there are people who are literally digesting the narrative that he is throwing out there every single day and on Fox News and what Republicans are saying. Like, there are people who are taking what he's saying for the gospel. And those people aren't stupid. And I think that's why I think it becomes very difficult for Trump, because he was trying to say, oh, he didn't incite this rebellion, this insurrection. But when you spoke to the supporters, they were like, well, he said, go down there and fight and take your country back. To us, that meant go down. Like, I just feel these people aren't stupid. They understand what it is that he's saying. And I think that the reason why, I don't even know if everyone's seeing this as white privilege, if I'm being honest. I'm just glad that it happened to a certain extent, not the people who have died, not the people who were scared and who felt their life was at risk. Just so that there is a very clear opposite as to what's going on with white America and black America. Like, never again is anybody going to hear where racism doesn't exist in America. It's because, you know, you're peacefully protesting. Well, there were some people who are out of line. Actually, no, you can be white in America and storm a federal building and go home and have dinner with your wife and never think about it again. That's the sort of place that you live in. And for America to move forward, I don't even know what that's going to take. I think definitely there needs to be consequences to what happened. People need to see that the law really is there for whoever breaks it, whoever dishonors it, or whatever it is that those people did. And I think also there needs to be bipartisan politics. The next person who comes in has to show, I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat, I'm here for everybody and the policies are for everybody. Because what we saw with Trump is a set of policies that worked for one person and it left other people out in the cold, and some people felt either empowered by him or they felt scared of the America that he was creating. They need to now show that there is unity from the White House.
Yeah, I almost share the notion of I'm not sure what the steps are for them to stop something like this happening again. Of course, Trump being out of the White House would be a big step. However, Trump, I think, just really gave a voice to a lot of people that felt the same way as him in America. So for it to happen again, I do think it can happen. What could stop? I don't really know. Like, I think Marisha, you said it well when you said the latest installment in America, the series, because if I had never stepped foot in that country, no one could pay me and convince me that it's a real place. You just couldn't, because all the shenanigans I see on the news, I'm just like, this cannot be real. This absolutely cannot be real. So it always just like shocks me there. I think the reason why it took this long though for people to see kind of the privilege or the white privilege that people may have is because I think they were just choosing not to see the privilege. I think it was very easy to say, okay, yes, they're killing unarmed black people, but what did he do? What was his past? What was he like, etc., etc. So they used a lot of excuses, and I think this was the first time where they were challenged, because I feel like a lot of Americans, especially those who are Trump supporters, they are like super patriotic, right? It's all about their country and they've got this super pride, and so they would never want to go into the Capitol Hill, one of their buildings, and storm it and hurt people. So the fact that a bunch of people did that and then there were no repercussions and that all these people were white, I think it kind of woke people up and they were like, actually, sorry, there should be repercussions. Why aren't these people being charged? Why are they not being treated as criminals? Why are they being described in the media as patriots? And it was like the only reason, which was obvious to everybody else, why they weren't getting this sort of treatment was because obviously they were white. And I think at that point it was undeniable that this was white privilege. And I think it's not only just about black people. I think it's all people of color, because I think if it was a group of South Asian descendants who stormed the Capitol Hill, I think we'd be having a completely different conversation, as well as black people. So I think at that point it was so undeniable that the reason why they're getting away with it is because of the color of their skin, that it had to make everyone take a seat back and say, you know what, actually there is privilege. And it's a little bit like, I don't know, it's a bit bittersweet that people weren't listening to like minorities and other people who were saying, you guys have privilege, you guys have privilege. It took this for them to realise that when they should have been listening all along. So that's the disheartening bit.
It is disheartening, but I think that sort of like you say, it's really sad. People died, people were injured. It was very scary for people who were in that building when the siege took hold. But sometimes you need something that's that extreme to move people to a point where they can no longer deny stuff that is happening right in front of their eyes, even though I guess they choose not to see it. And I think for me, I don't think it's going to have resulted, like those people that stormed the building, not all of them, but a lot of them will still come away, think they didn't do anything wrong and don't see a problem with the way that they were treated by law enforcement. I don't think those people, which I think a lot of them are Trump's kind of core fan base, if you like, that subscribe to his kind of more extreme values. I don't think any of those people are going to be moved by this. I don't think any of them will see what happened as any form of mistreatment. It's just like, well, we were just, we were doing a protest. I think it's the people, I guess, in the middle, the people who have either just out of pure ignorance or willfully just kind of buried their head in the sand and said, I don't want to pretend or acknowledge that this is going on because it doesn't really directly affect me or the people directly around me, that can no longer be that sort of complicit in it. Because I think in many respects, if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. It doesn't mean that we need to see you out protesting and see you being the face of any kind of campaign for more equal treatment of everybody in the US, regardless of the color of their skin or across the world. But we just need you not to be silent when you see it and to kind of support efforts to try and move the needle. And I think those people now are sitting there, like it's not funny what happened, but some of the funnier, I guess, memes and videos and stuff that I've seen have come off of like TikTok and Snapchat or whatever, have actually mostly been made by white American citizens who are literally going, look at this. You can no longer tell me that white privilege doesn't exist. And one of them, I forget that, I don't actually know what his name is. He's the actor that was in, he's been in Friends as when there was an episode where Phoebe had two boyfriends and one was a policeman. But he's literally there.
Oh, I know that guy.
Have you seen him?
Accent, like
yeah,
he's got
a very thick New York accent. I can't remember his name.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, yeah.
But he made this brilliant video, and he's like, I assume from the video that he's Jewish by descent. He went in, he was like saying Yiddish words at them, like, this is what we call this. This is how ridiculous this is. He's like, I don't need you to tell me. I knew this was a problem, but you can no longer sit at home and pretend this isn't a problem. I think in terms of how America moves forward and avoids this, the bit that concerns me, or I guess the bit that makes me unsure about how we're going to proceed, is I feel like the US is kind of going between two extremes a lot of the time. So, I watched Obama's inauguration and was like, if this man makes it through this and doesn't get shot, there's a hope here. Because I was convinced. I was like,
a lot of us were thinking that. There's
no way. Like, okay, they voted him in. That was for the people that don't believe in this kind of thing. That was bad enough. They're actually going to let him take office. Fine, he's taken office. For him to then stay through office, not get shot, make it through a re-election and do his full 8 years was amazing and progressive. But I think when you see something that is that progressive, it shouldn't be progressive in 2021 now, but to some people it's progressive. It pushes all those people at the other extreme to start taking action and bringing their voice out. And I almost feel like that is the reason that we've gone completely the other way to a candidate that, let's face it, I said misinformation, mistruths, shady behavior, inflammatory and divisive comments. Like, that should never come from a sitting US president. It's bad enough when it comes from human beings that just out civilians doing their business, but from a sitting US president of one of the most powerful countries in the world. So I think, it's awful. And so you have that, and I think that some of that is a response, right? The man didn't have any political career, so to speak of. He's not even particularly great businessman. He's gone bankrupt several times. So you have the people that are so vehemently opposed to something like Obama and what he represented, rising up and supporting someone who is at the other extreme in the form of Trump. And now we're almost going back, maybe somewhere in the middle, but back the other way, because we've got Biden here, and we've all seen the jokes praised at Biden about how obviously his age is advancing. We don't know how long he's going to be around.
2024 Kamala? 2024.
Yeah, well, exactly. And like, is it actually a way to squirrel in Kamala? Let's have our first US female president from a minority background or highly melanated background. So but I think as a combination, that is probably the most progressive we're going to get for the time being. And I think the duality of the two of them working together, and I think the way that Biden came out and condemned what had happened, like unequivocally, they're all now that Trump is leaving, Michelle Obama put a really poignant post together, and she came out and they were just like, we need to just stop this, because nobody should really have that much power. That's part of the reason why we have, Congress and Parliament and stuff. Like, no single individual should have that. But Twitter banned Trump's account, and he just went on the official president of the US account and started tweeting from there. And I was just like,
I think you just make such a good point, Marisha, about, because as much as I loathe what Trump has done in office, and I'm not even from the country, so this is as an outsider. As you said, Marisha, like, there are a group of people who feel that they found their voice in him. And I think when we're talking about how America moves forward, it's looking at all the people in the entire country. Because as you'll see in any election, and it happens here, I'm not singling out America, the votes that they go for are places either that they think they can win or they think is a swing state. If there's states that they don't think that they're going to get votes in, like, that's red, we're not going to get any votes, it's heavily Republican, they won't even really visit it, because basically it's a waste of time. But what we see here is that there are people who feel, as much as the white man to us may not be marginalized, in America, the white man in the deep south in some places who have had their industrial towns shut down, who don't have access to any types of work because all the industries that they used to work in have been shipped over to China, and now they're not able to kind of make things and bring things in. They feel disenfranchised. And it's about Biden coming in and really trying to think about everybody in the country, not just the ones who are going to be in the areas that are, more likely to vote for him next time. And I'm not saying that's what Biden wants to do. But I think it's so tricky when you have a country of 250 million trying to make policies that fit everybody, because somebody is always going to be, I don't want to say left out, but maybe get the short end of the stick. That's why Republicans that's why people like to vote Republican, because they're like, I'm going to get more tax breaks. And if I vote for the Democrats, well, they might be fairer in this sense, but I want to keep my money. It was like, well, I don't really believe in abortion, so let me go for the Republicans, but I know that they want to, kick out immigrants. It's just so tenuous at the moment that I think, unfortunately, what Trump has done over the past 4 years can't be fixed by Biden in the next 4 years.
Do you think then that Trump should get impeached? I know like people are calling for him to get impeached a second time. Do you think that will do anything? Make a difference? Stop him, warn others?
I want him to get impeached because he'll lose his pension and his security service and all these other perks that he gets, like health insurance. So for me, I'm like, yeah, you should be impeached because you shouldn't have those things. You don't deserve them for what you've done to your country and for the insurrection that you rose in the last couple of weeks of your presidency.
I want him to get impeached so he can't run again.
Yeah, me exactly.
I do not want 2024. They're like the rise of Make America Great Again. Absolutely not.
Because it will come back again. That's the thing. So I think, as I said, it's a evolving story. At the time that we're filming and between it when it goes out. But if Mike Pence doesn't enact is it the 25th Amendment? I mean, I don't know how many amendments we've got now. Like, I was like, everyone goes about the fifth. I'm like, how many amendments do you guys have?
They got a lot of amendments.
They got a lot of amendments. I think that's the important thing, and that's not to say that another candidate, couldn't go on and win, and that Biden and Kamala might have 4 years in office. But I just think that this is dangerous. I think that you're not supposed to take a position of power and use it to push an agenda. You're supposed to represent party politics. You're supposed to use it to better the environment. And I just feel like like you said, he's done more damage than good. He's just pushed his agenda on people. But speaking of pushing your agenda on people, speaking of pushing people who have come into buildings that they're not meant to be in, do you guys know what a push present is?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
So I said that with a lot of conviction there, Sophie. So model Keisha Kale Davis, who is the wife of rapper Gucci Mane, has recently given birth to their first child together, and she revealed on social media that she received $1 million as a push present from her husband. Now, for anybody watching who doesn't know what a push present is, it is a gift given to a woman shortly before or shortly after she gives birth to celebrate, I guess, thank you for the pain of the labour that you have just gone through. My question for you ladies is this: is a baby enough, or should a baby be a gift enough? Or should women be rewarded for that hard slog of labour with a push present? And if you were going to get a push present from your partner, what would it be?
To answer your first question, is the baby enough? Simply, it's a no. Personally, for me speaking, it's an absolute no. Just absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't understand. I pushed the baby out, so why would the baby be the gift for me? It just like, I don't know. Like, if we're talking about a gift from God, then hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. But if we're talking about a gift from my husband, absolutely not. Or my partner, or my baby father, it would just be a no. For me, it's just an I'm keeping it short and saying no. Okay? I do think you should get push presents. I love the idea. Can I just say, I love the generation we're in, that we celebrate everything, because I feel like from the last 10, 20 years, gender reveals and push presents, and even wedding gifts, that your husband has to give you a gift on your wedding day. All of these new things that have come in, I'm just glad I've lived to this time, because I enjoy these kind of extra celebrations. If I was to get a push present, now, this is just for me, what only works for Anissa. I would tell everyone to get a push present that you want, that's on your heart. And what is on my heart would be either a house or a car. That is what I feel like I should deserve if I pushed a baby out. So yes, short.
Anissa, there's a lot there. There is a lot there.
Really? You're going to
want a house
a millionaire
house or a car? A house or a car?
It doesn't have to be a millionaire, house or a car.
Do you know
what house are you buying if he's not going to be a millionaire, if he's just going to gift you a house when you pushed out the baby?
Well, I mean, he's got to have enough money for the deposit, for sure. But it doesn't have to be a millionaire to get a house deposit.
Oh, so it doesn't need to be bought outright, just like a mortgage, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, but obviously he has to pay the mortgage. But yes, do you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, I didn't realise how understanding you were being, sorry. I think, for me, I think push presents are ridiculous, to be honest. I actually think the baby is enough of a gift. Getting a present to push my own baby out, that doesn't make sense. For me, a healthy child is gift enough. And I know that might sound corny, but I really think if the child comes out healthy in mind and body, I really think that is a gift and a blessing. Flip side, I wouldn't turn down a push presents, because gifts are my love language. So if you're going to give it, I'm going to take it. I'm not giving that back. Let me just say. So what I would take is, I'm going to take a dog, because you guys know 2021, I'm all on that dog flex. I would take my master's, probably paid out in full, driving lessons and a car perhaps. It'd have to be something you couldn't just get me on another day. But in general, I don't think it needs to be rewarded to have a child. And I basically think, honestly, I think it's consumerism, because whereas Anissa's I think it's great, we celebrate everything, I feel like society is trapping us to buy gifts and spend money at everything, where we devalue the time spent and things that don't cost money.
All right. I'm going to say I sit somewhere in the middle of the two of you, maybe leaning a little bit towards Sophie. I think, first of all, I hope your husband was taking notes, Sophie, because that was very...
Oh, he's not watching this episode. He's not watching this episode, because if he wants to give it, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to ask him. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. And Anissa, I hope a millionaire is watching, who's okay, must have a house and have coffee if he's going to have a baby. I'm kind of with you. I love to celebrate stuff. So I think, life is here for celebrating. We, never know how long we're going to have. We never know what's going to come our way. I'm all for celebrating. But I'm with you on this idea that celebration has kind of become associated with some degree of consumerism and capitalism and just always being about spending money and how much you spend and the expectation of gifting. So I think for me, listen, I would never expect a push present. If you wanted to get me something, that would be nice. I'm like Sophie, I'm not going to send it back. If I had to pick what it would be, it probably actually even wouldn't be something like Sophie's gift choices were quite practical. So it probably would be something practical, like maybe some food that I haven't been able to eat the whole time I've been pregnant that maybe you can now eat that you're breastfeeding or something like that. Because I just love food and really that will just make me happy. Maybe I'm more of an experiences person than a physical tangible gift thing. So again, like if you thinking about like what your body just went through, maybe go to like a spa thing or like a little, I guess you got a newborn baby, but like a little, just something that is just like, okay, it's just for you, just to relax you for what if it's really truly about the hard slog of labor, like what your body just went through, to just like relax you and treat you. And other than that, I'd probably go jewelry. So it'd probably be something, but very like sentimental. So as a person, I don't really have expensive jewelry. I've got a lot of like costume jewelry because I just like kind of like weird and wacky stuff. The other like nice jewelry that I've got is probably not even that like crazy expensive. But the reason that I love it is because it's sentimental. It was gifted to me for an occasion, like you say, in celebration of something, or gifted to me by someone that I really care about. And so for me, I think having a piece of jewelry that like celebrates the birth of your child, and I mean that like your child together, like you were saying, you pushed out the baby, but it is actually your child. The gift is the kid. With some kind of engraving or something that every time you wear it or you look at it, you think, okay, that like reminds me of this like amazing moment that my child was born into the world. And I know that probably sounds a bit corny, but I think anything more than that, like a house, Anissa, are you for real?
No, Marisha, you just said that you like practical gifts. I've never met anybody who's got a house and told me it was unpractical. Like, I've never met anyone in my life. Don't mean the baby needs somewhere to live. And why wouldn't I want a car? Do I need to wheel this baby around? Like, those are the most practical gifts. If I had said that I wanted a yacht or something, like that would have been unpractical. A house and a car, I think that's very practical. And when I'm thinking about a push present, in my mind, I'm not just thinking the birth. I'm thinking the fact that, one, I've had to be pregnant for 9 months, so I've had to deal with all of that. Then, secondly, I have to deal with whatever wreck this is having on my body, okay? Let's do that. Then I've got to push this baby out. Then, this pregnancy could actually kill me, so I've got my health concerns. It's a bunch of reasons put together, and for me, it's like, I'm basically putting my life on the line to have this baby, so what is the cost of my life? Is it a trip to the cinema or is it a house? You have to like go somewhere on the scale, and it feels like the house feels more like what my life is worth. And I'm a big push present people. Every time I meet a man and he tells me that he's having a baby, my question always is, what are you getting as a push present? And I had a work colleague and he told me he was not getting his wife anything as a push present. And I was like the leader of the crusade who said every day, you need to get her a push present, you need to get her a push present. And like me and all the other girls, we'd search for hours on the internet. This is when I had nothing to do at work, it was a formal workplace. And we'd search for hours on the internet, different push presents. And he was so against it, but we were really convincing him, you need to get her a push present. Anyway, they had the baby, and when he came back to work, he said, you're absolutely right. After what I've witnessed, she deserves everything I can give her. And she wanted this really expensive, it wasn't even like she wanted a house or something. She wanted a really expensive breast pump. I think the breast pump was like £500. I was like, well, she needs to feed the baby. This just makes sense. So anyway, he got her the breast pump, and she really loved the breast pump. And so I like put that down on my scoreboard of some of the good things I've done in the world.
Anissa, you're out here saving marriages. You're out here saving families. You are out here doing the Lord's work. That's what you're out here doing.
Hallelujah.
I just want to say though, if my husband's watching, don't ever think you're going to get me a breast pump to feed our child as a gift. That's not a gift. Because I'm going to say that's a necessity. That's like, I would be so mad. I'd be like, no.
But that's practical. You guys are about practical. The breast pump is practical. It feeds the baby.
Nope.
Okay.
No, that needs to be at the baby shower. Yeah, go on, Marisha, sorry.
I'm going to throw this out here then, because I would be more concerned if I'd gotten to the point where I had pushed a baby out, or were like imminently pushing a baby out, and I didn't know where I was going to live or how I was going to get me and my baby home from the hospital and stuff. Like, I kind of feel like just before the birth or just after it is a little late to be like, oh, don't worry, I got us a house and I got us a car to drive the baby home. No, you're not.
You'll be surprised.
No, I will not be surprised. I'm not having a baby for anybody when that stuff is like not sorted, or at least has been talked about. Well, I'm just like leaving it to chance. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I feel like that might actually be part of the problem in many respects, because I think the problem is in the expectation. Like Sophie said, if somebody gave me a gift, I would fully appreciate that, and I would be like, that's so nice, that's such a lovely thing to do, it's very thoughtful, and appreciate the sentiment behind it, which is why I'm saying it doesn't really matter to me so much what it is, because it's about, I know this again sounds really cheesy, but gifting is supposed to be, it's the thought that counts. I think the problem is when we get into that thing of expectation, like, do you want to fall out with your partner? Like, Sophie's real passionate about gifts. Are you going to fall out with your partner because he didn't get you a gift, or he didn't get you the right gift when you just brought a child into the world together? And I feel like the expectation and the pressure from society or from people that you work with, Anissa, is pushing people to do something that isn't, like, women have been giving birth for like millennia, forever. And I'm not saying it's not a big thing. I'm not saying it doesn't take a toll. Like, I haven't gone through it, but I'm not saying it doesn't take a toll on your body, and that it shouldn't be celebrated and you should not be appreciated for what you have just done. But the expectation of being rewarded for it somehow, and then I guess like you get into that territory where people are comparing stuff. And so it's like, oh, well, what did you get for a push present? And then you're like, well, hang on a minute. My husband got me this, but your boyfriend only got you that. Or look, your wife only got you, like, it's a bit of a minefield. I'm not really here for that expectation. But if you want to gifting should really come from the heart, not because you're like terrified of your partner that if you don't buy them a house and a car that, you know, they might run off with the baby.
You should see a push present as a Christmas present, though. Like, you always, I'm sure, like with your partner stuff, you would expect your partner to get you a Christmas present. The gift is still coming from the heart, but the expectation is still there. So I treat my push present as I treat my Christmas present or my birthday present. I expect it to be coming. Whatever it is, I will enjoy. But obviously, if you know me, then you will bring me the enjoyment. So that's why I said, I think push presents have to be personal to you.
I think definitely, and I just think that people should really spend within their means. That's the only thing I would add. Like, don't get caught up with Gucci Mane getting that for Kylie getting a Ferrari, or like Beyonce getting a diamond ring. Like, spend within your means, because I think that's one of the things that scares me about push presents is like people are going to go into debt to buy something so someone can floss online to talk about what they've got. If you haven't got £1 million, like Marisa said, get the meal that I haven't been able to. Give me some cheese. Because I wouldn't have been able to
cheese. Cheese is good. But babies cost money. You can't eat cheese. Like, certain
you can't eat cheese when you're pregnant?
Egg, can't eat egg. Yeah, you can't even like anything like
raw,
pasteurized. Yeah.
No. You can't eat cheese when you're pregnant.
No.
She's going to end up asking for the house to be paid for by the end of this. It's not even a mortgage anymore.
I mean, I don't think you can. I've always said it needs a little bit of convincing, but I definitely think you can't convince me at this point. If I can't even have bloody cheese, that's survival from cheese.
Maybe that's why you feel so passionately that you need to have a car or a house as a reward, because you're actually like to be convinced to have the baby in the first place.
Exactly, because I want to put my life in danger for no reason. So whether you want a push present or you do want a push present or whatever you want for your push present, we have reached the halfway point of the show. So make sure you push that subscribe button, make sure you push that like button, and you also push that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. So far we have spoken about the incident that took place at Capitol Hill and also about push presents. Something I want to talk to you ladies about was something I saw online. Basically, an official petition asking the UK government to create a register for racist offenders has reached 10,000 signatures, meaning that the government must now fully respond. The petition's creators have said that the register will allow organisations to find out whether future employees have had any race-related offences before they are recruited into diverse organisations. Do you think there should be a register for racial offenders, and can we truly trust companies to use that data to discriminate against racial offenders?
So I saw this online as well, and I got to say that I'm kind of on the fence about it. Like, my initial reaction was like, yeah, of course, why would you not do that? And I think in principle, I like the idea of there being some way of kind of centralizing and checking whether people have perpetuated like race crimes. But I think the bit that I struggle with is, how do we actually implement that in practice? And I think it's because of quite a few different things. So first of all, when I was kind of digging into it a bit deeper, they want to add people who've had a conviction, anyone who's had a caution or dismissal from a workplace. And I think that kind of combines, as I understood it, the approach that they have with the sex offenders register, where it's people have actually been convicted, with something like the medical register, where you might have like a misdemeanor or misconduct, but you're still allowed to practice. And I think that gets a bit messy, because I feel like we do a lot of headline reading, and it's just going to be like, okay, you'll just blanket, you're racist. We don't really look at the detail of stuff. So if there was ever a situation where there was I don't want to say misunderstanding, but just, people do all kinds of things in the workplace. Sometimes things aren't as they seem. I've seen workplace bullying where people will not play the race card, but just will like push things to get people out of situations, or to get out of situations that they don't want to be in. So I think it's kind of open to manipulation a little bit in that respect. And when you look at something like the sex offenders register, the way that works is, I guess, you put in a request to your local police force, and they will then confirm or deny whether that person that you suspect may be in the vicinity of you or your children or something like that is actually on the register, so that you can make an informed decision. And the problem that I think I have with this is that I believe, and lots of other people are with me, but I guess not everyone does, that we have institutionally racist organisations in this country. So the police being one of those that have frequently come under fire for their kind of their handling of race complaints, even within them as an organisation. So for me, I'm thinking, well, does that lead to manipulation? Who holds this register? Who governs it? Who is in control of releasing information in relation to it or not? If we really did it and we really wanted to look at workplace incidents, does that mean we have to sack half the police force? Because there have been so many stories of things in the workplace, just within the police force itself, not even talking about interactions between the police and the public, that have either gone unreported and then been sort of talked about after the fact, or have been reported and have been escalated, and they've had whole committees and stuff, and no one's actually ended up being charged. So I think it's a dangerous game to play when we've got this situation where people are, who's in control of it? Is it open to manipulation? And that's a huge amount of data as well that we're holding about people. And we've spoken on this show before about data privacy and the mismanagement and the mishandling. The government itself is no stranger to leaks and hacks and things like that. So if we've got such a broad descriptor of who we would classify as a racial offender, and that includes people who don't have a conviction, then what would happen if that data gets leaked or it gets out? Because it's open to misinterpretation.
I just think that, just really tagging onto what you're saying, Marisha, I think it works in theory, and I think in practice, I don't think it's going to work for anybody. And I think what a register does, and I'm not talking about the child sex offenders registers, because I think that is people who have committed an offense, and maybe some people who have a problem that they can't actually control. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but children are vulnerable. They need to be protected. When we're talking about this list now, what about if somebody can change? What about if somebody has this tag against their name of they made a racist comment, and then now they're barred from getting work everywhere that they go, or in diverse organizations? And it reminds me of people, I know people who have criminal records and really struggle to find jobs because they have to make it known. And it could have been something that happened a while ago. And what you are on paper doesn't really equate to who you might be right now in this moment. And I think with race, it's very interesting, because when we saw the last vote in the UK for the Prime Minister, they're saying that the areas that vote against, like, parties that are against immigration are the ones that are the least integrated. So people who are living amongst people who everyone looks like them, probably the white majority, they vote against immigration because they're not used to seeing how it can work and the good things that can come together. So by barring somebody from a diverse organization, how is that going to help? We're basically just saying them, go and work with, with somebody, I guess in this instance, someone in an all-white organization, so no minority will be a threat from you. But I'm like, how is that not just going to build on exactly what it is that is the issue in the first place? And something else that I would say is, are we thinking about this vice versa? Because are we saying that no black people drop some shady, microaggressive, racist comment at work? Like, oh, that's just white people, girl, or something that, because they're saying they want microaggressions to go in there. I'm just like,
Yes.
When we start having microaggressions put people on the register, I'm like, no one is going to be exempt from that. And how do I know that my boss who doesn't like me isn't going to get back at me by putting me on this race register, and then now I'm prohibited from getting work? I just think it's really, really shady, and I don't think it's actually going to deal with the real problem of racism.
Yeah, I think that was definitely my point when I saw this as well, Sophie. The part for me that was murky is when I saw that they wanted to include microaggressions on the register, because I thought to myself, well, this isn't something that they can say is like a legal crime. Of course it happened, but it's kind of like, how do you police that enough to put it on the register? And I saw that one of the young ladies who's behind, I guess, this movement, I think they were calling her the Black Panther of Oxford, if I'm correct, Sasha Johnson, she was saying that similar to what you guys said earlier, is that they would also want to use this register to stop people even living in certain areas. And I thought to myself, like, hang on a minute, like, if somebody had a microaggression on this registered to themselves, that they were banned from living in this certain area, it just felt like it was too murky, like it was almost too far. Because I think that if somebody is known to have like violence against people, like serious hate crimes, things like that, for me it'd be like, okay, I understand why you wouldn't want them living in that area, especially with like sex offenders. But with microaggressions, I mean, listen, I'm not going to say that they're okay, because they're absolutely not okay. But I don't know if it's enough to bar somebody from living in an area. And then also on top of that, I agree with Sophie. I don't like the idea of a register. I'm on the fence about it, because I see how you could implement it so that people who are racist offenders aren't put in places of power in diverse organizations to bully people or influence people. But at the same time, I don't like the idea of the register, because I believe that people are progressive. That's just the belief that I have. I think that who I was yesterday is not who I am today or tomorrow. And I think to have something like that put on a formal register, it's like an element of control, a little bit like cancel culture, but formally by the government, which I'm not really into.
So I think it was quite interesting, because like I said, my initial reaction was like, yes, why wouldn't we want this? And then I sort of thought about it a bit more and thought about what some of the problems with implementing it in practice would be. I think it's interesting that the petition only reached like just gone over the 10,000, which means that the government has to respond to it. I think it's over 100,000 when they actually have to bring it to Parliament and actually discuss it. So I think, I guess a part of me was wondering, is that a reflection of lots of other people similar to us going, okay, in theory, I can see how that will work, but actually, I don't know if I want to co-sign on this because it's got a lot of things that need to be worked out. I think you've both said really interesting things as well about just what we do with people who are, there's one extreme, which is, people who are perpetuating hate crimes and like violent crimes that are completely disruptive, and for which maybe there's like some serious stuff that needs to go on, whether it's in the form of punishment and or rehabilitation. But for those smaller things, I think we're not going to get out of a place of ignorance and still help people to understand because a lot of microaggressions are just that, right? They're micro, that people don't even realize they're doing it. It's just born out of ignorance. And so banning these people, as you say, from the workplace, like every workplace should be diverse, in my opinion. We live in, just speaking here of, just the UK, we live in a diverse country. We obviously have different ratios of the different populations that make it up compared to somewhere like America. But it definitely is a it should be that organizations, insofar as possible, reflect the society that they operate in. And so there should be no such thing as like, oh, we have diverse workplaces and non-diverse workplaces. I can see that there would be some benefit in having, I don't know if a register is the right thing. I think that's where the issue is for me, but I can see there being some way of reporting for organizations that I guess are public organizations or organizations that are meant to represent public interest, because there really is no place for microaggressions, macroaggressions, any of that thing in those organizations where people have that kind of power and that kind of influence over people's lives if you come from or operate from a position of bias. What I think would be more interesting is looking at organizations. So I would be, even as an employee going into an organization, I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I would be so concerned about whether my fellow employees were racist, or because I think you'd see that pretty quickly when you started. I would want to know that if I felt that there was racism going on, whether it was directed towards me or towards somebody else, that it would be dealt with properly if it was raised. And I think that is something different. That's looking at organizations that are basically complicit in racist behavior and do nothing to kind of shut it down.
That's the thing that I really wanted to come in. You could see I was just like, I've got something to say, but it's the bit about what does a register do about systemic racism that's happening in an organization or it's institutional? Like, we've talked about, Black people not being able to get ahead in workplaces and what could be done. And my thing is, what happens when the board is completely white and they don't really think about diversity when they're trying to promote people, and they're trying to promote because of nepotism, because, their really good friend has been recommended to them at the dinner table, and, they don't think about anything. They don't think anything about there's no Black people at a senior level, and those Black people can't get to the senior level because they haven't got the training that is necessary, because they might not have access to it in the circles that they're in. Like, that to me is the racism that we need to be looking at, because the majority of people that are affecting us in the workplaces as minorities from progressing aren't going to be on this register. They're going to know better than to make some sort of underhand sly comment. People know how, I think Boris Johnson knows how to act to a certain degree. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to exactly tell us, he has had some political training.
He has.
Do you know what I mean? Unlike Trump. So whereas he says it in a coded way, like, oh, Churchill, he did so much good for us. And you're just like, Boris, that this man was basically like a racist, and he believed in
hang on,
the fact that Black people were less.
Even Boris is like, he was talking about...
He said, that's
referring
true.
to women in, referring to Muslim women in the niqab.
Very true. Let me just
or something.
Let me talk about the CEO of a company then, who might know how to conduct themselves a bit better. But yes. I'm like, what about the racist structures that they have in place to stop people of minority ethnic progressing? The register can't deal with that. The register's looking at just a comment that I might make or something I might do, but it's not looking about the reasons why we can't get ahead at all. And I think that's where it lacks for me, because it feels like it would just be putting a band-aid on like a life-threatening wound.
Well, that brings me back to the second point of my question then. Do you think we can actually trust these companies, if we were to have a register, to actually use that information from the register to discriminate against these racial offenders? Because personally, for me, as you've said, if the company itself isn't already diverse, or if they don't see it as much of a problem, I could imagine people turning a blind eye if they think this person is good for the job.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree. I think it's just open to too much manipulation, really, unless it's sort of enshrined in law, like in, I don't know, if the laws and stuff that govern employment and HR, unless it's actually wrapped up in that. Why would you do it? It's like for certain posts, you have to have a DBS check because you're going to be working with children, or you're going, those posts require it. There's no way you're getting into any of those posts without it. But I think we're talking here a little bit more about, I guess, big business. And so the cost, but again, everything's about money. It incurs an additional cost if you have an additional step in your hiring process. I don't know how many people would be that up for it. And by doing that, what happens if you expose the fact that you've got people already working in your organization on it, not just potential employees? What are you going to do about that? Are you going to sit on that information? Are you going to call them up and fire them? Like, what's going to happen? I think it's a bit murky. It needs to be thought through a bit more.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see what the government responds with.
Yeah, and I don't know anybody who works in HR. I know people that work in HR, and they're just like, when they get the equal opportunities form through that talks about, race, background, religion, and they tell you they're not going to look at it. They were like, oh, we look at it. We look at it. We see what race people are. Like, so there is no secrecy. Like, there is going to be no confidentiality. And I think adding that layer of personal information, it could be dangerous for some people.
Definitely. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the government is going to respond. But something I want to get you ladies' response on is former Love and Hip Hop Hollywood star Masika Kalisha has just announced her engagement after only dating her partner for 4 months. So the reality star also revealed that she has known her fiancé for 10 years and admitted that she has curved him for 97% of this time. Do you think you can truly fall in love with someone you've had in the friendship zone for so long, and how would it happen?
100%. My husband was in the friend zone.
Really? Do tell.
So we need a story.
Do tell.
He was in the friend zone. So
For how long? Sorry, go. I'm so excited.
So, when we first met each other, I could tell he was attracted to me. I thought, yeah, he's alright, he's cute. We went on a date, and I was just kind of like, nah, I just feel, my exact words, I feel like God wants me to be with somebody else, so it's not gonna go any
Did you say that to him?
I said that on the day, and he has never forgotten it, and he brings it up every now and then, like, oh, God didn't want this, and here you are.
I can't tell. I love Jonathan. That's the best responses.
So he was cleanly put into the friendship zone. I was just like, not gonna happen. This is a box called friend. In you go. And then we just started talking. He would come to my workplace because we worked under an umbrella organization. So every now and then he would have to come for meetings. And every time he came, he would just come to my office and just chat with me over the period of 2 years. And after about 2 years, I said to my friend, I think I made a mistake here. I think I made a mistake. And she was like, yeah, I think you did. And by this time, he already had another girlfriend. So
I love this story.
Confession time. So we were up late one night talking. We went away on a work trip. So there was a bunch of us on a work trip. We was all sitting down together in someone's room, chatting, blah, 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 blah. And then I was just like, I just need to tell this guy that I like him because I feel like he likes me. And I don't know what's going on, but I just feel like there's an attraction there. So I told him, and he told me, you missed your chance. No, I'm not interested, and I have a girlfriend, so this isn't going anywhere. And I was just left with egg on my face. But thankfully, he changed his mind and he saw the light and he realized that actually he was about to miss out on a very good thing. So now we're together. So men, women, you can definitely move from the friend zone into a love relationship. The thing that I don't like about it, to be honest, I think it's really sneaky because every man that I know who has been in the friend zone, my husband included, they know what they're doing. They're like, my personality is winning. Like, I'm gonna win her around. She just needs a bit of time. I don't like that there's this deceptive plan going on underneath the seams, but what can I say? We've been happily married for 2 years.
Sophie, that was the best story ever. I think you have no idea. I was gagging, like, for my life. Like, when you told me about the work trip, I was like, yeah, it goes down on the work trip. And you said you told him, and he had a girlfriend. I was thinking, no. And he, oh my God, that's the best story ever.
I think you said something quite interesting though, Sophie, because I've got not a similar story because we didn't wind up married. Just no spoilers here, sorry guys. But I had it was about over 10 years ago now. I had a long-term relationship with someone who was my friend for about 3 years beforehand. But I think I will say this. I think there's always one party, if it's going to go that way. And I fully believe in platonic male, female, whatever, whichever way your persuasion is. I believe in platonic friendships. But I think if it's going to transition from one to the other, quite often one of you is always harboring some degree of feeling, and you might be willing to let it go, or you might be willing to play the long game. You might be, in my case, it was more of a, I think he was just a bit shy. Like, I don't think, once you start to become friends and you're building it, but then it's quite clear you're in the friend zone, you don't know how to move it in that direction. And in my particular case, it was actually, I think timing is everything. So I was reading an article from, I think it was in the HuffPost, or in the Independent, and she was basically saying that it's often when there's these big life events happening and these big changes happening that people then feel like compelled to suddenly spill their feelings to someone that they've been friends with. And in my case, I was about to go traveling for like 6 months. And I think just before that, I had just gone through a breakup, and a mutual friend of ours was like, I was telling him I'd gone through this breakup, and he was like, yeah, good. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Like, no, like people don't normally say that. And he was like, good. He's like, because I always thought you were going to get together with this other friend that we have. And I was like, really? And I think at that point, something gets put in your mind and you're just like, okay. And I was like, okay, I just hadn't really thought about, like, and I'd be lying if I said, I didn't think that there were times where I thought, you're definitely into me. Like, you kind of know a lot of the time. If you think someone's flirting with you, 9 times out of 10 they are. So I do remember thinking, okay, I could probably have guessed that, assumed that since no approaches had been made, it wasn't something that you were intent on taking up. But with that in my mind, mixed with, the heartbreak of breakups, mixed with like, I'm about to just go off for like 6 months, I think that kind of put us both in a situation where we had this, what was called our day of fun. And it was meant to be I know it sounds, no, it's not how it sounds. That wasn't
Friends with benefits?
I understood.
Was it a nighttime party?
No.
How long did this go on?
No. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. So I had, no. Okay, let me just make this clear. It was not that at all. That came out the wrong way. We lived in different cities, and I had a leaving party before I was going off, so I could see everyone before I left for 6 months. And he came down for it, and then was obviously still in London over that weekend. So that next day, because I thought that's quite sweet, he came down to say goodbye to me. We're like, let's go and hang out, and go and do a couple of things. And it was one of those days that began with like some lunch that turned into a coffee, that turned into a trip to the cinema, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And then you got to the end of it, I think in the cinema, I think we had a little kiss at the end of the film in the cinema. And then we went for a drink afterwards, and it was just like, what just happened here? And also, why did this take so long? And what was going on? But I honestly don't think it would have happened if I hadn't been about to leave, because I think people just gather up the courage and I can throw this out. And you know what? If I get egg on my face, I have to see this person for another 6 months. We'll have all blown over by then. And I think it also depend on how close you are as friends. So we were good friends. I don't think I had reservations like, if this doesn't work out, I'm losing like one of my best friends. So I was maybe a bit less risk averse in that sense. But it was completely PG-13. I just like to make that clear.
Make sure we got you. It was PG-13. It was 12A even. You needed that adult to come a little bit. It's fine.
I don't think it was. I think it was a clean
It was
15.
you.
That's what I'm going to say. But well,
No.
No. I think I agree with both of you guys. I think it usually happens when people feel like it's kind of like that airport scene, like the person's about to leave, so you have to run and tell them how you feel kind of vibe. And I also agree with Sophie that I find it horrifically sneaky. Now, I'm not like a friendship zone person. I kind of feel like if I see you and I like you, then I want you. I don't want to do the friend thing. I don't want to do like anybody who is a man and is my friend. I'm not attracted to them physically or even personality wise. You just wouldn't be my friend even if I felt like that. And I have had, I have a lot of male friends, and I have lost a lot of male friends because at one time or another they've come and they've done this Usher confessions, part 1, part 2, part 3, and I have not taken it well.
They wanted your sexy ass. That's what you're trying to say, isn't it?
Well, those were not my words, Sophie. No, but
I feel like that's where you're trying to get to.
They wanted to go 18 movie.
Exactly.
No. I don't. Do you know what? It was not that. It was more of a conversation. It was never like they tried to kiss me outright, but it was more of a conversation. Look, I have these feelings for you. I want us to do X, Y, Z, and I want us to be together. Blah blah blah. And it just hasn't. I've never taken it well because in my mind, I just feel like you've been in my life. as like a double agent. I feel like you have an agenda and you're deceptive. And anybody who knows me knows that honesty is like my big thing. And I understand if you don't have the courage to do it, but for me, it's just like, I can't move past the deception. Like, I can forgive you, but we're never going further. And because I didn't want you in the beginning, I don't really want you now. And I know that sounds horrific, but I'm just one of those people. We don't grow. People don't grow on me. I either instantly like you or I don't. It just has been that way always. But I did once have a friend who told me, but because his friendship meant so much to me, I just said to him as soon as he said it, let's just never speak about this again. Please, let's not do this. Because I really needed his friendship in my life. Like, I really loved it. I said, let's never speak about this ever again. And we never did. Obviously, years later, we didn't actually drift apart. But he will always be very important to me. But for me, if you're in the friend zone, you're just meant to be my friend. Like, that's just how I see it. So, yeah.
Do you know what? I think you bring up some really interesting points, Anissa, because I think in an article that I was reading, they said the fact is the more you get to know someone, the more attractive that they tend to become to you. Now, I understand you're saying that it doesn't work for you like that.
No,
and it gets, for me, generally, I've really been against, in fact, not against, I don't really believe that men and women can be friends if they're both heterosexual and they're attracted to each other, or someone finds the other person attractive. I just think it's never going to work. Like, I don't really have male friends like that because I just don't think it can work. And I know someone's going to say something to that because they always do. That's how I feel. And I think I've never had a guy who's kind of graduated to being in a relationship with me because I never really had male friends. So it was never an issue for me because I'm like, I just feel like you're probably being my friend because you want to get close to me and you probably want something to blossom. And I don't even want to give you that idea that that's going to happen. And I think with Jonathan, why I think it's so funny, my husband, is because I still think it's really, really sneaky. I think the fact that he has kind of moved on, I think it's really sneaky. And he thinks he was just like, because for, what's her name? The one from Masika?
Yes.
Yeah, from Love and Hip Hop. When I saw the guy who she's engaged to, I'm like, it all makes sense. He's not stereotypically good looking. She's an attractive woman.
I say he was good looking.
No. For me personally, I don't think he's stereotypically good looking. Like, he hasn't got like Hollywood movie looks. Do you know what I mean? He's not like that. He's not going to play the leading man. And I think a lot of times when people say, oh, I don't see them that way, it means I'm not physically attracted to them. It's whether depending on what you think is attractive. And I think some guys like that guy from Masika. And I think for Jonathan, because automatically I was like, he's not really my type. I like guys who are over 6 foot, really dark skinned. He's neither of those things. So for me, I'm like, it's not typically the sort of person I would go for. But I think for Masika and definitely for me, when I became friends with Jonathan, I'm like, this is an amazing guy. Like, I can talk to him about anything. He's really intelligent. We just really, really vibe. And I really had to rethink the sort of people that I was going for to be like, actually, there's a really great guy here who's probably not packaged how you would normally like them. But then the more you spend time with them, the more attractive he became. So I think it can work on both ends. You can be the sort of person who's like, it doesn't matter what you look like or how friendly we are, it's never going to happen. And some guys or some women or whoever you're attracted to really just are growers.
I think though, even though they grow on you, there has to still be a slight spark of physical attraction to take you to that line. Do you know what I mean by that?
Well, it's true. Well,
yeah, there has to be
went on a first
bit.
date in the beginning. So Jonathan and I went on a first date. So obviously there was some attraction there. But I think generally, like, if he had been my automatic type of like 6'4", really dark skin of immediate African descent, then we probably wouldn't even have been friends. And I think that's the beauty of having the friendship, is that you know that it's already based on this trust and this relationship that you've already built. And then you're bouncing off of that. And any good relationship should have a friendship as a basis.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't even be friends with people that I even think are kind of attractive. Like, if I think, oh, you're a little bit attractive, like, we just won't be friends, if that makes sense. But all my male friends are handsome. They're very handsome for all the single women.
But I think you can appreciate that somebody is good looking or attractive without necessarily wanting to get X-rated with them. I think that's, like, I can... whether it's right or wrong, I could look at my male friends, I could look at my female friends and say, oh, I think that's an attractive person or not. I think Sophie raised something that was really interesting, which is just that in that friendship situation, the the reasons that you choose to be someone's friend have nothing to do with aesthetics. And so you're actually evaluating that person's character. You're evaluating their values. You're evaluating the way that they treat you and the way that they make you feel when you are interacting with them. And I think if those things all stack up to, because that's really the values that we should be looking at when trying to choose a partner. And I think definitely something as I've gotten older, I'm not that old, but definitely as I've gotten older, I have focused more on that. Whereas when I was younger, it was much more about, like Anissa said, that instant, I'm either attracted to you or I'm not, and I'm not going to change my mind about this. It doesn't matter how nice you are. And if you play in the friend zone and you're like the one that's always there, that's just not what's getting me going. But I mean, at that time, you're also looking for different things that perhaps when you're looking to be a bit more settled. So I think it can work both ways. You can definitely fall in love with someone. And I think friendship is a great basis for a relationship, for sure.
Guys, I just love it when we have all these different opinions, and I wish we could talk about this more, but our time is over. So I want to say thanks for watching and listening to Ethnically Speaking, but keep the conversation going with us. We want to know, can you start a relationship from the friend zone? Let us know your answers down below in the comments. And if you want even more of us, don't forget to click the link in the description for access to Extra Ethnic, which is a special segment exclusively available to our email subscribers. For a summary of everything we've talked about today, head on over to unitedmelaningroup.com/ES031. The link will be in the description. And as Marisha said at the start of today's episode, we are on the hunt for fresh talent, fresh faces, fresh voices to join us right here on Ethnically Speaking. If you think you have what it takes, head on over to unitedmelaningroup.com/ES casting for more information on how to apply. And remember that the deadline is January 31st. If you've been watching us on YouTube, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. We're going to be seeing you again the same time next week. But until then, wear a mask, wash your hands, keep your distance, stay safe.